Jason. It's my job to stump. Hey everybody, it's Carrie Hoffmeister with Carry On Abundant TV, and today I am so excited to have on author Jessie Minassian. Jessie, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Carrie, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are so welcome. So Jessie has a new book out, her 15th book out, that is called Your Brightest Life, which we will talk about more in a little bit. But we are going to start with what we call Carry On the Truth. And that's just because it's fun to put carry on at the beginning of anything. So, so these are true or false statements. So you have a 50-50 shot. You just have to tell me if you think it's true or false.
Okay, so if I think it's true or false. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ready.
If it makes you feel better, I don't ever really know any of these. So
that does make me feel better.
Okay,
That
good.
takes some pressure off.
Yes. All right. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. In theory, it takes over 5,000 helium balloons to lift an average-sized human from the ground.
How many?
5,000.
5,000. I feel like I've watched the movie Up, and I'm pretty sure that could lift an entire house.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say false.
It's true.
Maybe less. It is.
It is true.
They lied to us. They lied to us.
It does say in theory. So
Yeah.
do we
Okay.
really know? We may not know.
No.
All right, number 2. There are over 30,000 varieties of apples existing in the world.
30,000. Okay, I'm a total frutivore, and we have like 4 varieties in my fridge at this exact moment. So I feel like that is very plausible. But because the last one I got wrong, I'm not going to go with my gut on this. So I'm going to say false.
It's true. Now, I will say this. So I fact check all of these, and with this one, it was kind of like iffy. So there were a couple that said there's 30,000, but a lot of them said it was 7,500. So you could get
That's
like
a big disparity in numbers.
it is. So do we really know? You could get a half a point for that one, I think. So
Okay, I'll take my half point.
Okay.
Things don't go well from here.
okay, next one. A group of monkeys is called a troop.
True.
It is. It is true.
Yeah.
Wheat is the most widely cultivated and consumed crop in the world.
I'm going to say false. I think it's rice.
It is false, but it's corn.
Oh, but I got my point.
But rice was second in what I read, and wheat was third. So,
Corn, really? That's
yeah,
interesting.
I know. The state of Delaware holds the record as the American state with the least number of counties.
Delaware. I'm going to say false. I feel like it would be maybe like Hawaii.
It's true. They only have 3 counties.
3 counties.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Isn't that crazy? When leaving a cave, bats always turn to the right.
Okay, so they're upside down. I mean, like for their right, that's like going down, right? So I'm going to go like down and then out. So true.
It's false. And I actually, I had to research this one because this told me that they always turn to the left, but the actual answer is they can go any which way.
Yeah. I've
There's
been in a
not,
cave with bats, and it did not feel like it was an orderly fashion the way they exited.
I think they just want to get out of there. So I don't think they're like, snails do not have teeth.
Okay, like I know they chew up my plants. Like I know that they eat the plants. So like, do they just gum them up like with their tiny little lips? I feel like they must have some kind of chompers. So I'm going to say Oh, but really snails with teeth? Like not in any of the pictures. Like you never see snails with teeth.
I'm gonna say go with your gut.
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes, they have teeth.
They do. They have 14,000 teeth. So they're like little microscopic, little
Tiny, tiny, tiny little
tiny
teeth. Yeah,
teeth.
yeah.
Sharks have the same number of bones in their body as humans do.
I mean, what would the chances be? Like very slim. I'm gonna say false. I'm
It
probably
is
gonna go
false. They
false.
actually
Okay.
don't have any bones.
Oh,
I did not know that. I would have thought they
it's
did.
all cartilage. Is that it must just
Yeah,
be just
that's what I've.
cartilage?
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? Okay, we have two more. More money is printed every year for the board game Monopoly than for the US Treasury.
Prior to a couple of years ago, I would have said true to that, but now false. No, we definitely have to print more money than Monopoly. Or is it just all digital? Maybe it's all digital money that they've created. Oh man, I'm thinking way too hard on this one. No, I'm gonna go false. I'm going with my gut. False.
So it's true, at least my source that I got it from. It could have changed though, because this was from like a few years ago when they said it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Okay.
it was
Okay.
like, I think from what I remember, it was like 30 billion they did in Monopoly money. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
The heart is the strongest muscle in the human body.
I'm going true on that one.
It's false. It's the masseter muscle.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Wow. I'm impressed that you know what masseter means. Master muscle. You did this. I'm assuming it's your
It's a
jaw.
jaw. Yeah.
Jaw muscle
Well, I
for
mean,
chewing.
it told me that, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
It's
take
like
all the
college
credit for
math
knowing.
class.
Yeah. I can't take all the credit for it.
Wow.
Hey,
Well,
you
I did
did.
not add up my points, but I'm pretty sure I failed epically. If we were on a scale of like A to F, I'm pretty sure I got a big fat F on this one.
You know what? You get an A for effort because it's just for fun. So you were a very good sport about it. And those were some tough ones. So I
I
think you
am
did
an
great.
insanely curious person, so I love things like this because you learn something new.
That's right.
I love learning.
All right, Jesse, that was fun. Well, since I have not had you on the show before, I always like to have my guests give a little bit of their background so our viewers can get to know you a little bit. So if you just want to give us a little bit of your background, how you got into being an author, a speaker, a blogger, all the many things that you do. What is the heart behind Jesse?
Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay, I will try to keep it the sum up version because I've lived a lot of years now at this point in my life, so I have a lot of stories to tell. But specifically, how I got into writing and blogging and speaking back, wow, after a couple failed attempts at one in Hollywood and another in insurance, I ended up switching to print media in college. And through a series of events, ended up working at a small Christian publisher in California, and total God thing. And we were working on a series of Bible studies with focus on the family. And I pitched an idea to my boss and just said, "Hey, would you give me a shot?" And she did, to her credit.
Wow.
And I remember, Carrie, one of the first times, I was writing a Bible study to women, 2, 3 times my age. And I remember just going, oh my goodness, Lord, like I have no business pretending that I know anything about anything. I was like in my 20s, early 20s. And I just remember saying, Lord, if you have something to say, I'm available. And I remember getting to the end of writing that day and reading back over what I wrote and not remembering writing those words. Like it
Wow.
was profound. And I just said, okay, Lord, like if this is how it's going to be, I will do this as long as you want to do this. Like, let's go. And so that was kind of the start. And just my heart behind it is just, to speak the words that the Lord puts on my heart and in whatever environment he's put me in. So I've written multiple genres, for adults, for teens, some fiction, But specifically for this audience with Your Brightest Life, my husband and I were working at a Christian camp in California, and big Christian camp, Hume Lake. And I was doing seminars for the high schoolers every week. And afterwards, they would, on my email address, they had questions. And so I was fielding questions from, dozens and dozens of girls every week. And a lot of them were similar. And so I would email them back, and my husband's like, there's this new thing called a blog. Like, what if we made a website and you could answer the questions there, because other girls then could benefit from the answers. And
Yeah.
that's how Life, Love, and God was born. And, it's been a couple decades now of answering girls' questions, not just from camp, but now all over the world. And I just have such a heart for this age group. You're in teens and early 20s, you're making decisions that are going to set the course for your life. And so if we can come alongside them at that point and help them cast a vision for what life can look like in tandem with the Lord, and by making good choices, and just having a sense of agency and optimism, I feel like we can really help set these young women up for a lifetime of living their brightest life, to be honest.
That's so good. Was writing something that you've always wanted to do, even in high school and in
Yeah, I mean,
school?
I've always loved writing. I remember writing really sappy, over descriptive essays in sixth grade, for my teacher. And she saw, she would really encourage me on keep writing, but I never thought I would be a book writer. Like that wasn't really, I had other plans. I wanted to travel the world. When I switched to print media in college, I wanted to be a National Geographic travel writer. That was kind of my idea. And, in a sense, I've kind of gotten to do that through some of the fiction that I've done and traveling, and getting to, just be immersed in different locations. But
Hmm.
I feel like none of our original plans usually pan out. God always throws us
Hmm.
curveballs. He's a great author, and he tells good stories. And so, predictable stories aren't any fun. So
That's
it's fun
so
to see.
true. He does. He likes to take you on a journey, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So what is your faith story? Can you give us a little bit of background? Did you grow up in a Christian home?
Mm,
Did you always know about Jesus? When did you come to
yeah.
know him?
It was just my mom and I for the first several years of my life, and she was a brand new believer. She became a Christian after she had me, and she had prayed a prayer. This is not something I've shared often. Actually, you ask good questions. So,
Thanks.
um, she grew up Catholic in a Catholic church, and she went into the church and just, with me on her lap, said, God, I know I've messed up too much for you to love me, but will you please love my daughter? Will
Mm,
you give her the life that I wanted to have with you? And I feel like God answers the prayers of mamas, especially single mamas. Like he just has a soft spot in his heart. And I have never not known that God loved me and had a plan for me. And in time, God showed my mama that he loved her and had a plan for her as well. And she was a huge influence in my life and faith. Um, and yeah, so she led me to the Lord. I think it was about 4 years old, little Bible
wow.
pictures with little eyes or something, my, little kid's Bible. And, uh, but the sanctification journey has been a wild one, as it is
I'm
for
sure.
so many of us. I've always loved God. I've always loved God, but I've definitely gone my own way. And I was asked recently how I have so many stories to tell. There's 70 chapters in Your Brightest Life. I said, well, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. So
Yeah.
a lot of stories come with that. But yeah, I mean, it's been two steps forward and a step back, but I would say I've loved the Lord my whole life, and I've seen just Him love me and His faithfulness to me. It really brings me to tears thinking about it.
Yeah, that's so good. That made me a little bit emotional. My mom was a single mom growing
Yeah.
up, and I remember just hearing her in her room all the time, just
Oh,
praying for us
wow.
kids. She
Yeah.
just recently passed in April, and the
Mm,
biggest thing that I can think about her is just her prayer life is what changed me. And just hearing her beg to the Lord, just pouring her heart out to him. I'd hear her sob. And of course,
yeah.
as, a young kid, sometimes I'm like, oh, what is
Yeah.
she doing? Like, we're fine. And now I'm a stepmom, but I think of her as mine, and I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, you just, you want so badly
Yeah.
for your kids to
Yeah.
just love Jesus. And
Yeah.
I've done the same thing. I've prayed in her room and I've just cried my heart out to him. So
Yeah.
um, I agree. I think God has a special little place for mamas,
Hmm.
and that's good. So thanks for sharing that. And then speaking of the little chapters in your brightest life, which I love, this was a really, I like simple reads. I'm a very like, it's hard to keep my focus. I'll just say that. With reading, it's got to like really capture me, or
Yeah.
it just, and what I love about this is I'm gonna actually just show people, is I told Jesse before we started recording, is that it's like a devotional without saying it's a devotional. I don't know if that was your heart behind it, of it to be like a devotional, but it has little tips. So it starts with, your tip one, and it's just a short little read of everyday life struggles that girls go through. So can you share with me your heart behind how this book came
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it right on. Honestly, all of our attention spans are dwindling, like mine
Yeah,
included. And I
it's
found
because of these things, I think. Yeah.
I think it's a huge part of it, but also I think we are drawn to story. And
Yes.
I think a lot of devotionals and Christian nonfiction books, I'm guilty of that too. I've written many of them. So, but we can get wordy and we can get a little bit
Mhm.
preachy. And I feel like what
Yes.
what really engages people is a story. Like I myself, I mean, I read a lot of Christian nonfiction. I read the intro story and then I skip over a few pages
Yeah.
to get to the next intro story, right? Like, so the heart behind this was, especially for teen girls, like I want to capture their attention. So it's very story driven with just a short, hard hitting truth that, and then an application. And two, you mentioned the devotional side of it. I found, early on with the Life, Love, and God series that I wrote for teen girls, the felt needs that they have right now. I mean, even girls who grew up in the church who love God, the felt needs are, does he like me? Like, how do I get him to notice me?
Yes.
Why do I keep fighting with my mom? Like, I look in the mirror, I feel fat. Like, those are the felt needs that they have. And a devotional, like, has its place. Absolutely. I have them, I buy them for my girls all the time. But in making this not a devotional, we're able to just tackle those felt needs and then come in through the back door with scripture, or through like, and not every chapter has like a key verse. It's more,
Yeah.
this is wisdom based on scripture, based on the spirit of God, but it doesn't have to, start with a verse and then end with, a prayer or whatever. So it gave us more freedom to answer the questions that girls are asking me at the website, my own daughters, to tackle the things that they're really, going through.
Yeah, that was one of the things I loved about it. I think even just the first tip, I was like, she's funny. And you're real in it. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is you're very honest with your experiences in your life. And these are tackling real things that I grew up in a more, stricter environment, to where a lot of these things weren't talked about. And it was kind of
Mhm.
like, this is what you do. You abide by this, you follow this rule, you're good. And
Yeah.
you are kind of taught to suppress a lot of these things that you feel,
Mhm.
or and so I love that you tackle those things. And so I know you mentioned before that you had your daughters read it and kind of get the review. What was their take on their mom's book? But also, were there stories in there that they hadn't heard before?
Yeah, there definitely were some new things for them. And yeah, so I had shared with you earlier, I've, different articles that I write, different things, I'll pay them to be reviewers, because like, I mean, I know like it's different when it's mom, it just hits different. And so I don't
Right.
expect, and I don't like, I early on had prayed for my own girls, like, Lord, I've poured myself out for others' daughters, like that. It's been my life mission.
Hmm.
I will continue to do that, but please bring someone alongside my own daughters, because I know
Hmm.
that like they don't want to listen to mom. Like
Yeah.
I know they're learning from me. I'm very open about my life, but I know they need other people. They need
Right.
younger people that they look up to, that they're going to, be able to learn from and glean from. And so, yeah, I would say the highest praise. I mean, you're like, oh, mom, it wasn't bad. which is high praise. They are my toughest critics, which I
Of course.
appreciate. I
Yes.
mean, they'll be honest if a story's flat, or if, if they don't think it's like really relevant, like they're going to be honest with me, which I appreciate. So for them to say it was good, I mean, I took that as my work is finished here.
Yes. That is so true. Any type of little compliment from your own teenage daughter is like, oh,
Yeah.
I made it. In your experience with young girls, what is today that you feel the biggest thing that young teenage girls are struggling with?
Um, you know, I think something that would surprise probably listeners is just how similar girls are today as they were when we were teens ourselves. There's a lot of differences, but the core questions that girls are asking: am I beautiful? Is there a guy who would want me? Is there a God who would accept me despite everything I've done? Like, those core questions are the same. How they're answering those questions has shifted based on the phones in our pockets, based on the technology, based on the shift in culture and like romantic relationships. Those shifts have caused, I would say, it's more difficult to answer those questions. And when I speak to teens, especially, like, I'm honest, I actually think it's harder to be a teen today than it has been in
Hmm.
a, and I'm not going to say ever in the history of the world, because
Right.
like, hard things have happened in the
Right.
history of the world, but definitely harder than when I was a teenager. Like, I feel like the pressures that they're facing, um, and just this cultural moment, it's challenging. It's not, I'm not a pessimist about it at all. I think they are poised to be an amazing generation and to have a
Hmm.
huge impact in this world. But, it's definitely a challenge. I think, if you're going to ask me the biggest challenge that they face, I think it's going to be keeping tech in its proper place, because the devices that we have the potential to completely sideline us for the kingdom and actually change the structure of our brain to where we are unable to stay focused, stay motivated, our mental health, like those, like keeping our mind sharp and fresh is a huge part of having a sense of agency and making wise choices. And I know, I mean, even in my own life, like have had to really fight back hard against my tech because it's
Hmm.
changing my brain.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge. I mean, we've always had moral depravity. We've always had, like, all these things, parents are all up in arms about
Yeah.
in every generation. This generation is going to be the one that takes us to the grave. But yeah, I think for them, it's going to be understanding the sense of urgency to keep tech in its proper place.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that's even something I struggle with. One of my things for this year that I always try to work on something and where can I grow in certain areas every year. And so one of the biggest things for me was my phone. And I started noticing when I would go to the gym that I would be on the treadmill and I would just constantly just pick it up and I'm just looking at it and I don't even know what I'm looking for. And at one
Yeah.
point I had to sit there and be like, what? This is actually caused like anxiety in me more as an adult than I ever had because constantly looking at it, it's like a habit. It's the
Yeah.
first thing you pick up when you wake up in the morning. And I didn't
Mhm.
have, they were not big when I was a teenager. They had just started coming out when I had graduated high school. And so
Mhm.
I kind of miss those times when you would have to call your friend and have a conversation. And now it's like you avoid phone calls. If somebody calls you, you're like, what's wrong? What did something happen? Like, is everyone okay? And it's like, when did that become that?
Yeah.
So, and I see it too with our 15-year-old when she got a phone, they are addicted to that thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's go do something else. Like, let's put that
Yeah.
down. But
Yeah.
what is,
Yeah. It's true.
it really is. What is the biggest piece? And I know this is a pretty broad question, but for parents that are watching that maybe have, some teenagers at home that they're struggling with, and it may be hard to pick one piece of advice, but what
Mm.
would be something that you could give them with
Yeah.
how to raise
Well,
their teenagers?
I know exactly what I would say, and
Okay.
I can't take credit for it because as soon as over a decade ago, I was interviewed by Mark Gregston with Parenting Today's Teens, and have been a pupil of his ever since, of learning from him. He runs Heartlight in Texas, which is a residential like home for troubled teens. And he's, thousands of teens that have come through, and he has such a pulse on how teens get to that point and
Hmm.
how often it's tied to the parents. And so I've learned a lot from him, about as parents, what can we do to help set our teens up for success? And his mantra is, as long as you have relationship, you have influence.
Mm.
As long as you have relationship, you have influence. And so, yes, we have rules. Yes, we have guidelines. Yes, I have screen time limits on my kids' phones,
Hmm.
but I'm trying to major in relationship. And if you're struggling with your teen, like they have to disconnect from you. Like it's a natural part of growing up. They are going to push against you. They are going to be rebellious. They are going to talk back. And it can be so frustrating that God gave them free will and that they have the option to talk
Yes.
back. Trust me, I know. But if you have like just working on that relationship, asking genuine questions, letting them make decisions, I'm in junior high, I sat down with my girls and we wrote down on a piece of paper, these are the spheres of your life. Like here's like school, and here's your money, and here's time with friends, here's what you eat. Right now, I have my fingers in all of these, but the goal is for you to be autonomous in all of these in the next
Mm.
4 years.
Yeah.
So here are the areas that I am handing over to you to start being in control of. Here's your alarm, make sure you're ready for school on time.
Yeah.
And starting to and with that, as we become coaches through high school more than like parents, it's not easy and it's messy, and there's moments that they're going to make choices that you don't like, but keep loving on them, keep building relationship, doing things together. Bribery is okay, like bribe them to read books.
Yeah.
We talked about
Weird.
earlier,
Yeah.
like, or encourage it, just try to I would say set the table for them. You can't make them eat, but you can set the table of good things. So,
Mm.
I even when money was tight, I offered to pay for them to go to summer camp because I knew that's where like they were going to encounter Jesus.
Hmm.
And he's the one who's going to make the changes, not me. It's the Holy Spirit's job to change their hearts, not me. I can be a coach and a guide, but I can't make the change. And so it's just building a relationship and setting the table for them so that they can, yeah,
That's so good.
partake of what's good.
That's so good. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. That's
Mhm.
what is your heart? What is your hope for your book, Your Brightest Life? If it could do
I
anything.
honestly, yeah. A big reason for writing it was just seeing a sense of despair and anxiety and hopelessness. Like, and in generations past, I've noticed, there's hard things that every generation faces. But what concerned me about this news generation coming up is that they didn't feel like it was going to get any better in life. Like even once they left home, like they felt like I heard often, like, what's the point of even living? Like even like adults have it worse than even we do, and we're miserable. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that's surprising to me, right? Like for me, it was like, okay, well, once I get out of the house and can make my own decisions, the world is my oyster. Like I can do what I want.
Yeah.
And but because of the economy, because of different things, this generation is feeling like, what is there for me later in life? And so my biggest hope is just to bring a sense of optimism and agency, honestly, of you have an incredible superpower. It's called choice.
Hmm.
And yes, God is the author and he's the one, a man plans his steps, but the Lord directs his path. Like that is true. But also you
Yeah.
have the ability to make choices. And I want to just cast a vision for what it can look like to have a good life, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and to just give them a sense of like, yeah, like that's possible. And I want that. And so I'm going to make choices today that are going to get me in the right direction.
That's so good. Where can people connect with you and where can people find the book?
Yeah. So lifeloveandgod.com is the website that I have for teen and young adult girls. You can find all the books there. Your Brightest Life is on Amazon. Anywhere books are sold, you can find it there. If you go to my website and click on Your Brightest Life, it'll take you to the book page. And if you purchase the book, you get free downloadables. There's a vision board kit. There's
Oh, cool.
affirmations, 30 affirmation cards that are beautifully done, designed, and an adventure list. And so definitely check those out. If you decide to buy the book, make sure you get the free goodies.
Yes, make sure you check out Your Brightest Life. This is what it looks like. And Jesse, thanks so much for being on the show today and chatting with me. It was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you, Carrie. It was fun.
Thank you all for watching Abundant TV. And just remember, until next time, to carry on.